Hi, folks. Welcome to your FATEC post-match reaction pod, coming to you in association with Gersnet. My name is Alec Anderson, and I'm talking to you the morning after the horrific Nacht before. Scotland losing by 5-1 against Germany in the opening match of the Euro 2024, the opening match of the European Championships, the worst ever defeat sustained by a side in the opening match of the Euros, although the opening match of the Euros isn't really as historically hefty as, for example, the opening match of the World Cup. The Euros, when I was a kid, up until I was like 7 years old or something like that, the Euros only consisted of 4 teams. You'd have, a whole qualifying campaign. It was all about the qualifying, and you got home and away, quarterfinals, and you'd be left with your 4 teams, and UEFA would pick one country and 2 cities in that country, and they would have 2 semi-finals, a final, and a third, fourth place playoff. 4 games split across these 2 venues. And that was that. That was your Euros up until 1980, which is the first Euros I remember. That's Germany winning it in Italy. That was 8 teams, 2 groups of 4. 2 groups of 4. And then I think you get your semi-finals and then the final. In fact, did they go through? I know 84 you had the famous Portugal against France semi-final in Marseille. I can't remember if they had actual semi-finals in 1980. Germany against Belgium. I think they might have went straight into the final. I'm trying to delay talking about last night's game, aren't I? You then get to Euro 96. I was there. I was at 10 games at Euro 96. 6 group games, 2 quarterfinals. I was at the famous Germany-England semi-final and the final. I'm still trying not to talk about last night's game. That was expanded to 16 teams, and that was fine. That was okay. We had the breakup of the Soviet Union 4 years before that, but 16 covered it. That was absolutely fine. We now have this ridiculous situation. We've had it since 2016, where the Euros consists of 24 teams. There's only 55 member nations in UEFA. Almost half of UEFA qualifies for the Euros. It's a tournament which I think it's more embarrassing if you don't qualify for it now than it is great that you have qualified for it. And I think Scotland almost went and proved that last night. Don't get me wrong. I remember the first Euros at this expanded 24 team size. In 2016, we didn't qualify for that, and it was fucking humiliating. We came very close. We did really well in that group under Gordon Strachan. And because we hadn't qualified for anything since the 1998 World Cup at that point, so we weren't really caring about this little numbers game that I'm playing just now. But we didn't qualify for that, and I remember we played France. Was it in Nice or Metz? One of these kind of outlying stadiums. Anyway, it wasn't in Paris. We played them as a warm up for the French, maybe a week before the actual Euros started. So we were leaving France via whatever airport as all the other countries were arriving in France, as 23 other countries were arriving at French airports to take part in the Euros, and it was just absolutely horrific. I don't mean I was there. I didn't go to that. I've never watched Scotland anywhere more abroad than Wembley, but I've never attended that. But just knowing that it was happening was absolutely humiliating. So I think there's going to be 2 weeks of football now, top international football getting played, or international football getting played. I don't know how top it is after what we watched from one of the teams last night, in which we're just trying to get rid of 8 teams. I mean, even the fact that there's 24 teams in the first place is a nonsense. We're now get we're now get 6 groups of 4 teams, and only 8 teams will be eliminated. This whole thing of the best third place teams, which seems to be Scotland's main ambition from the moment we touched down in Germany, we can get 4 points. It's an absolute joke. You've got a World Cup coming up. Next World Cup is going to be 40 more games than the last World Cup, which was far too much. Has been far too much since they expanded to that. What it was at France '98. They expanded to. It's just far too much. There's going to be 104 games played at the next World Cup finals. It's going to take 39 days. It's like 16 venues across 3 different countries. The first World Cup I remember was 78, Argentina 78. Only 16 teams taking part in that. And now even the Euros is bigger than it. It's this ongoing war between FIFA and UEFA for prestige, i.e. sponsorship, and also the more games they can play, the more finals they can have, the more money they can make. With the last Euros getting delayed because of COVID, it's only 3 years since the last Euros. The last World Cup getting played because it's disgustingly given to Qatar. Just showing you where FIFA are at these days in terms of their venality. It's not even a full 2 years since the last summer tournament. It's only 18 months. It's it's too much international football in general. And this, it felt as if last night, as a Scotland fan anyway, it really did just slap you right in the face one last time. Typical Scotland. It's not a typical Scotland. We've only lost by more than 3 goals in finals tournaments once before. And that was a 7-0 down we took by Uruguay in our second ever game in finals football at the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland. Uruguay were the reigning world champions at that time, an absolutely phenomenal side. And Scotland had turned up, just typifying how we just abuse ourselves basically when it comes to international football. We turned up at that tournament. The first game we played against Austria, which amazingly we only lost 1-0 in Zurich. We didn't even have a pennant. Our captain didn't even have a pennant to swap with the Austrians. It's the photograph of that. It's humiliating. And we lose a second game 7-0. There only was 2 games, 2 group games. I certainly was for Scotland anyway in that tournament. And we're humiliated. But I think that's the only other time I might just still be hungover from last night. And I wasn't even drinking. I think that's the worst thing about it. I just been emotionally hungover. I think that's the only other time up until last night that we've lost by more than 3 goals at a major finals. The main problem for Scotland is we've only qualified for 12. This is only the 12th time we've reached a finals. But I think we've only lost by 3 goals, or more than 2 goals on 2 other occasions. A 4-1 doing by Brazil in Seville in 1982, Dave Nery toe poke, etc. And the 3-0 doing by Morocco in our last ever match at the World Cup in Saint Etienne. So it's not typical, but what is typical for me is Scotland just finding a different way to let you down. It was awful. We're going to spend 2 weeks, to say, getting rid of just 8 teams in this tournament, and Scotland really need to prove again. This whole thing about if we have this, it's a technical achievement it would be now for me. It's something I grew up obsessing over, the fact that we could never get into the second round of a finals. When we did qualify, I grew up with this qualifying 78. It was a nightmare. We'd already qualified for the 74 World Cup. I didn't remember that. We then qualified for 82, 86, 1990. We then get to Euro 96. We got to Euro 92 as well, and ended up in the 1998 World Cup. I grew up Scotland just qualified, especially for World Cups, constantly, but we could never get through that first round of group games. And this is the thing with this: we can get through. We can get those 4 points. Big ambition. If we do, we would end up in the last 16. And the first Euros that Scotland qualified for, Euro 92, was, as I say, only 8 teams, consisted of 8 teams. So we'd still have to get through the last 16 before we bettered our the achievement of Euro 92, in which we just qualified for the group stage, if you like, but there only was 8 teams got there. You know what I'm saying? We were technically in the last 8 of all the teams in Europe in the Euro 92, so I feel as if it's now the least Scotland can do. We need to get through this group if we're going to come out here with another than total humiliation and setting the national team's cause back even more comprehensively than failing to qualify for something. Since the World Cup in '98 up until Euro 2020 had set us back. It's brutal, folks. It's absolutely brutal. That was Martin Heidegger. He's a German philosopher, famous German philosopher. He said there's this thing about he thought it was out of order that Western philosophy had prioritised presence over absence. And it's almost like last night we were saying, "Oh, there you go, mate." Scotland have managed to turn up, managed to be present at a football match, and yet simultaneously be absent at the same time. Martin Heidegger, one of the brainiest guys ever to walk the face of the earth, but he got to that point where he became so kind of pretentious. He thought it was the only way to live his life was to be a rustic, a man of the woods. He would go off to the Black Forest and his little cottage in there, and he would chop wood and make gateau or whatever it is he would do, pretending that he was just this son of the soil kind of thing. And he joined the Nazi party to prove how much of a man of the people that he was. Absolute dickhead. While he's inside writing books that would, in his wee cottage, writing books that would absolutely bend your brain if you try to read them, and absolutely fry your brain if you can't actually understand them. Absolute genius, but the pretension really let him down. And I think that's the thing with Scotland. I can't help myself. 200,000 Scots turning up in Munich. You're just here for the beer. Well, that's what you get. I think the lowest point for me last night was when we got our goal from the Germans. I mean, it wasn't a deflection. Scott McKenna just tried to play the ball back across the 6-yard box, if you like, and Rudiger comes in there and just heads it straight into his own net. We didn't get a shot on target. We didn't get a shot on goal the whole game last night. So even the goal that we did score came from the Germans shooting more successfully on their own goal than we possibly could. And there's genuine cheering coming from the 10,000 or so Scotland fans in the stadium. Like, the camera's showing you folk 4 other seats now, like delighted, trying to goad the German. Well, we've scored. And then they're singing and all that. I think it's like, this is a humiliation. There comes a point you've got to ask yourself, if it's just a stag do you're wanting, go to a stag do. You know what I mean? Munich's a great place to visit. I've been to Munich on holiday. I've been to Munich for football. It's absolutely fantastic. Amazing city. And the beer is off the scale. It's different class. But, you know, they've got Oktoberfest. That's full of idiots who don't really know how to drink, pretending they know how to drink. You can go to that. You know, don't follow the Scotland football team. Though, to be quite honest, I don't know who would. And start celebrating when, you know, the humiliation has been temporarily ameliorated, if not actually emphasised, by the fact that we get a goal through the Germans putting one into their own net. And it then leads to what happens. I'm sitting there watching that going, 4-1, well, that's the same as Brazil beat us in the 82 World Cup. So really, I made 11 men for that entire game. So maybe that 4-1, that one's kind of putting... saving a bit of face with that one. How long is it to go? Oh, there's 30 seconds injury time left. We're not going to get through it. Bang, 5-1. Yeah, it just felt right. It felt right. The presence of absence, Scotland turned up and weren't there. It was absolutely unbelievable. We had our pretentious types as well. The whole kind of cargo, bevy, the troops and all that kind of patter amongst estate agents and civil servants and chartered accountants pretending to be lads for the day, cultural appropriation, taking away the patter of people that they never worked or never had the same socio-economic situation as the people they are mimicking while they're there. I'm bitter. I'm very, very bitter. I'm very, very twisted. I've been watching Scotland for so long. I know why we became this ongoing stag and hen do in terms of our support. It's part of why I've never seen Scotland abroad. I've never watched Scotland. I was there the last time Germany opened a major tournament at the Allianz Arena in Munich. I was there. The opening game of the 2006 World Cup. I just was trying to get to a game in the World Cup finals. This was as close as I could, as it was going to be when I was of an age and earning enough money to be able to do it. And I just randomly kept applying to FIFA. And eventually, like 2 days before the tournament started, through some random ballot, they sent me a ticket for the opening game, and I got myself over there. Pretty smartish. Had to go to Frankfurt and then get the train down to Mannheim, the chessboard city of Mannheim, where Sepp Herberger was born, the guy who won the World Cup for Germany in '54. That's Wunder von Bern and all that. Anyway, and changed trains there. I felt that was a big emotional moment for me. At 2 o'clock in the morning, and got a train from Switzerland. It was coming. I was going to Switzerland, Bern, Allianz down the south, and I got that from Mannheim down to Munich, and yeah, I had to stay up all day. Managed to keep myself awake on a few beers, and went to that game. And there was a couple of guys sitting. I was a very back row of the Allianz Arena. The goal that Scotland were supposed to be shooting into in the first half last night. It was a very back row of the top, the third tier, and there's a couple of guys in front of me in kilts. One of them's got a Northern Ireland top on, the other one's got a Scotland top on. It's just like you can't get away from this. But I grew up my whole life, since watching Germany at Euro 1980, just loving the Germans, knowing, understanding that the Germans were doing it right when it came to international football. At least at that point in time, they were absolutely unbelievable on the European club scene as well. And they're getting back there this season. German team is losing 2 of the 3 European club finals this season, but the season just passed. But at that point in time, even as a kid, I could see what is, as I got older, became worse and worse. Yeah, whiskey. Scotland lead the world when it comes to whiskey, and it's something we enjoy. But the Germans, this whole thing of the kind of thing that dominated the really just cliched coverage, mainstream media cliched coverage of this game, the build up to this game in this past week. With the Scots and the Germans, especially in Bavaria, it's a match made in heaven. We're both football crazy countries. We're both beer crazy. We love our beer. The Germans make beautiful beer. We love this, we're going to do this well. Same with the football, we really love this, so we'll try and do it well. We have this thing, okay, we've got all your, you and McCall, I'm a rambler from Manchester. We've got all the kind of artisanal, woolly beers now, which I have to take part in, despite their pretension, because I don't get drunk in anything over and under 5% these days, because I'm such an alcoholic. But up until just a few years ago, it was Carling, Tennants, pint of heavy, just getting pished on pish water, throwing as much of it down my throats as possible to get the buzz. But my God, we forgot the taste, we forgot about quality, and our football seems to be exactly the same. And a German friend, guy's working over here for a few years, and I got to know him, of course, and he was he used to go to the gym, and he would listen to the Super Scoreboard phone-in, because he'd never heard anything like it in his life. And that's what him that said. It was just like, I've never heard such. We like football in Germany. You guys are absolutely insane about it, but you just spend the whole time moaning. It's just who's trying to con us, who's there a conspiracy against, who's got to get sacked, who's got to get sorted. We have, we have moments like that in Germany as well. But it's just, it's the ire that they seem to be into here in Scotland, and we are. It's just about bringing everything and everybody down. And this is what you get. It's like, again, it's this abusive relationship. I hear this crap. And Graham Souness, well done, Graham. Absolutely, I love Graham Souness, obviously. An absolute legend. And well done him on his little honour and Super Alley. Thoroughly earned. Absolute legends in their different ways, especially in management as much as anything else, and both phenomenal players. Who done Ali McCoist's the last guy to score a winner for Scotland in a major finals, and Graham Souness, remember him equalising against the Soviet Union, Spain '82. Guys who gave it their all when it came to playing for their country. I think Ali's still fifth top in the all-time goal scorers for Scotland. John McGinn just needs one goal to equal that record, and Ali's last goal was against Switzerland. In a tournament that we played. That last winner for Scotland in a finals was against Switzerland in a tournament in which we played the hosts. So you never know. But well done to both of them. But I heard Graham Souness in desperation last night saying the whole thing about Germany's a population of 80 odd million people. He's on ITV, Graham. Terrible coverage. And this is we're on a nation of 5 million. And even Mark Puga, even the anchor, doesn't hold back and says, but Croatia's got a population of 4 million. I didn't even think Croatia had as many as 4 million people. I thought it was like three something million in Croatia. I usually go on about Uruguay, who've won 2 World Cups and many Copa Americas and got to other semi-finals of World Cups. And just keep producing players of a certain level. All the great teams, Real Madrid, etc. They've got Uruguayans in them. Apart from Andy Robertson, who have we got? So, I just don't think that's an excuse. I think in China, they've got a shit national team. They've never done anything in a World Cup. I think they qualified for one. So it doesn't the size. It's not the size of the population. It's the size of the love of football within that population. Scotland maybe can't be expecting to be winning 4 World Cups and 3 Euros like the Germans. But my God, we should be doing so much better when you consider the amount of energy we seem to. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just guys like me. But the amount of time and effort people spend watching and discussing football in this country, it does dominate. It really does dominate. You look at the way it's dominated the report in Scotland, even the news for the last week. They're putting out extra hour-long programmes, and the reports are coming from. This is the time of a general election. The reports are coming from Munich and all that ahead of this game. Can we not just enjoy, can we not turn it into a positive? Do you find a way, accept that football means so much to this country? And it just seems like, qualifying will do. That's a party. It's good. I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's a kind of a part of me this week. I went that game against Finland last week, my 90th Scotland game. Last night was Scotland's 831st game since we invented international football. A 20-minute walk from here down at Hamilton Crescent. the cricket ground down in Partick. Last night was only Scotland's 831st full men's international. I've been at 90 of them. 90. On the Footballogy app these days, it tells you these things. So last Friday, or a week past last night, was my 90th Scotland game. So I've been to more than a tenth of all Scotland games ever played, and I'm old, but I'm not that old. I've only been average. I went to my first Scotland game in 1980. So I've been basically, that's 45 years ago, I've been averaging 2 Scotland games a year since I was 10 years old. And that's enough to have seen more than a tenth of the Scotland games ever played. But it's such a part of your life. We have to do so much better than we did last night. Kieran Tierney celebrating that tackle, and I was fine with that. It's been mocked today. Kieran Tierney celebrating knocking the ball off a German player to get a bye kick for Scotland in the opening minutes of that game. That's fine. Andy Robertson's in there, the captain, gave him a wee congratulatory slap as well. That's what it's all about. Get yourself psyched up. It showed that the players were maybe, appreciated the size of the challenge ahead of them and what they had to do. But what followed was just absolutely god awful. The Germans are good. The Germans are so good, and I think what became majorly apparent last night was just the difference in quality of players. Scotland setting up in a kind of 5-4-1 almost. I think it was meant to go to like a 3-5-2 or the kind of 3-4-2-1 or whatever it is that Steve Clarke likes to play when we had possession, when we're in attack, but we never got to that stage. So basically we're doing this kind of 5-4-1 formation, which in the SPFL gives Rangers real problems if somebody sets up like that. Oh, they're just sitting deep. The Germans just like, well, if you're setting up 5-4-1 and like it's actual lines that were so obvious, we'll just let Gundogan go in between two of those lines and we'll knock the ball into him and he'll turn and play somebody in. It was so easy because they just have the technical ability. You're looking at us, we've got Andy Robertson, who's won the Champions League with Liverpool, won the Premier League with Liverpool. Kieran Tierney himself played for Arsenal, he's played La Liga with Real Sociedad. A cracking player. Typically we've got them both in the same position. They're having to kind of make up this kind of Frankenstein formation that we play under Clarke because of the fullback scenario. And then we also were missing other fullback, the right fullbacks were missing Nathan Patterson and Aaron Hickey as well. They're both out with injuries. That's terrible. What's his name? Anthony Ralston of Celtic, not even a regular with Celtic, I don't think. And so it's putting a lot on him, asking a lot of him to step up to that kind of level last night. But there was no movement and there was a lack of aggression. Something Nagelsmann talked about the German manager in his post-match press. He was surprised at a lack of aggression. This German fellow I used to hang about with told me that there was two areas of the world that Germans feared playing against. It was your British teams, especially like the Scots and the Irish, because they were so aggressive. And your Yugoslavs, or former Yugoslavs, Serbia, Croatia, because they were so aggressive, they had no respect for Germany whatsoever, if not actual hatred for them, and were technically good to go with it. And I remember, Bertie Vogts getting put out the '98 World Cup quite spectacularly by the Croats. I think the Germans themselves were surprised last night at how lacking in aggression Scotland were, and I think it might just down to the fact that we just couldn't get anywhere near them. We weren't able to get in there and make a tackle, and the one guy who did get close enough to make a kind of hard-hitting tackle just turned it into this. It was disgusting. I had been so relieved. The best part of the game, the only kind of bit to be happy about in the first half hour was around the 25th minute, when we thought the referee awarded Dick Turpin, he awarded a penalty against us, and we're already 2-0 down. You're thinking we're losing a goal every 10 minutes. Already we're 2-0 down within 18 minutes, 1-0 down within 10 minutes. We're going to end up, this is going to be 9 or 10-0 if we keep losing goals at this rate. And then it was VAR called it back. It was a free kick at the edge of the box, which I still was expecting the Germans to ping it straight into the top corner of the net. They didn't manage that, but that was a result. I was like, oh, thank God it's no penalty. It's still only 2-0. And we could get to the half-hour mark. And we did get to the half-hour mark, 2-0. It was very reminiscent in many ways of Rangers going to Parkhead in the league for the second time last season. The season just passed. John Lundstrom, we'd pulled a goal back in that game. Rangers pulled a goal back from 2-0 down. And then John Lundstrom just launched himself. But he mistimed the tackle. He'd been naive in the application, deciding to try and make that tackle, connected wrongly, and had to get sent off. We're 2-0, still 2-0 down last night, but not getting that penalty against us felt like a goal scored almost. Just feels if we can get to half time, 2-0 down, what the hell Ryan Porteous was thinking about, I don't know. It's the same thing he's obviously been thinking about all those times he was making two-footed tackles against Rangers players. That's the times I've seen Ryan Porteous in action. I remember a game during COVID, one particular game during COVID at Easter Road, there was no crowd there. He was just, every tackle he went into against every Rangers player on the park, Aribo, Jack, whatever, he was jumping over the ball with both feet. And I think Stephen Gerrard's mentioned it, I think, to the media. He gets this framed photograph presented to him of him standing over Alfredo Morelos, a guy who I think he'd beaten a football match once, but he'd fouled him really brutally. It's cowardice. It's not impressive. It's cowardice. It's the first thing that gets spanked at you if you're actually playing any level of football. You know, the whole point of football is you're controlling the ball. Guys going in over the ball, etc. It happens once in a while, but the stuff he was doing was leg snapping stuff. It's total cowardice. It's like, turning up at a boxing match with a gun. It's out of order. It's the opposite of sporting. It's assault. He seemed to have lost it when he went to Watford, that aspect of his game, Ryan Porteous, and I have seen him playing well for Scotland. I particularly remember the game against the Ukraine, which was played in Poland because of the situation. The Ukrainians get invaded by the Russians. But it was played in Poland, and it was in the Nations League, and Scotland needed a draw would do us. We would top our group, and as we did, we drew 0-0, and we are now in the top section of the Nations League. We're in Group A, or League A, whatever the hell you call it. It's a great achievement by Steve Clarke to get us up these levels in the Nations League. And Ryan Porteous was fantastic that night in defence, and he's played a couple of good games for Scotland. Technically and certainly physically, he's got enough there. There's certainly a lot of players far worse that have played for Scotland at centre half, especially in recent years. But that last night was cowardice. It was selling the jerseys. He could not foul. He could not hurt Ilkay Gundogan enough. I saw it at first. I watched most of that game through my fingers anyway, and I thought, he's lying in the deck. The way he went into that tackle, it doesn't look right. The player that he's hit is lying in the deck, and Porteous is lying in the deck. This is just shortly after the relief of us clearing it. The goalkeeper couldn't hold a shot. Gunn couldn't hold a shot. And I thought, right, that's fine, it's been cleared. Maybe it's a good tackle by Porteous, but I don't like what I'm seeing now. There was some sort of replay they showed you where it looked like he actually made a good tackle. Oh, it's okay, it's a great tackle. And then they showed you from another angle, and it was obvious he not only landed his studs on the right ankle of Ilkay Gundogan, but his other foot come through to kick him in about 3 different places, right up to his balls, basically. It was, and he won the football. Porteous actually cleared, the most disgusting thing about it is he proved that he could win the tackle cleanly. He'd actually cleared the ball. And yet, he was more interested in just how he can think that VAR, how a professional footballer, especially somebody who plays in England, but thinks that's not going to get picked up. He knows it's going to get picked up. It's a twisted idea that you had when you were a kid, that being bad-tempered and assaulting somebody is impressive, is tough, whatever. It was just, even if he's in an absolute downer because we're getting played off the park, something he should be used to with Hibs. I dare say it'll happen to him at Watford. Certainly be used to being under pressure, playing for Scotland. To think that you're helping matters by doing that, by just getting there and getting yourself sent off. It was disgusting, and it just completed. I didn't complete it. It was worse to come. A horrendous night. I don't understand why he did that. There's something mentally wrong with the boy, or emotionally at least, and it needs to be looked into. He needs help, as far as I'm concerned. That was just horrendous. There is that part of you that thinks, oh, Scotland, take the worst ever tanking we taken in an opening game at a finals, the worst tanking anybody's ever taken in a European Championships opening match. Just like I think if we went and beat Switzerland and Hungary and end up cruising through to the next round for the first time in our history in fine style, and Ryan Porteous ends up getting the winner against what would need to be Hungary, I would imagine, if he's allowed to even play in that game, violent conduct. Maybe we get through to the last 16, it's a Ryan Porteous header in the last minute that wins the game. They put Scotland in the quarterfinals, and suddenly that esprit de corps, and we thought we were terrible. That grounded us, and then the fact that we'd never got through the second round before meant we'd nothing to lose, and on you go, sense of adventure, etc. We've seen it happen to so many teams other than us over the decades of watching international football. Maybe Ryan Porteous could come back, and it would be just like the thing. It would be just typical if he come back and turned himself into a hero, from zero to hero. But that was such a bad moment, and it follows on Ryan Porteous doing that so often, especially in his career with Hibs, that you think he needs taken away and examined. I mean, the boy needs psychiatric, if not psychological help. Psychological help, I would imagine. He needs to be spoken to by somebody, by a professional, to find out what the hell was going on in his head. It was just horrific. So it's a penalty, it's a red card. We're 3-0 down at half time. Coming to the second half, it's so 10 men. 10 men when we're already getting absolutely hammered. Yeah, the second half actually ends up okay. We only get beat 2-1 in the second half, if you like. But the Germans, of course, are making lots of changes, and those changes score goals. With Fulkrug scores an absolute belter anyway. And you're looking at this game thinking, well, it's Champions League level against maybe Championship level. I think that the quality, as I say, was shown up. Musiala, you're looking at guys who are playing for Bayern Munich, who are Champions League semi-finalists this season. Gundogan's from Barca. You've got Toni Kroos, obviously an absolute legend at Real Madrid, who are the most legendary club in club football. So you've got fellas here who are playing at a different level from Scotland. But I don't know. I was left, again, the Rangers comparison. I'm a Rangers supporter, so this is what I'm used to talking about. A bit like earlier last season when Rangers lost 5-1 to PSV Eindhoven. I wasn't convinced that PSV Eindhoven were going to go on and do particularly well in the Champions League. I think, did Dortmund put them in the last 16? I didn't think it was a case of just being outclassed here. I thought it was about Rangers being bad, and I think last night was as much about Scotland being bad as it was about Germany being good. I'd need to see Germany, maybe even in the next two games, to see maybe Switzerland and Hungary. I think they're going to test them more than we did. I don't know if this means Germany are going to go in and win this tournament, because I just don't think Scotland provided the standard of opposition that gives you a true test of what Germany are going to be all about in this tournament. But is it bad that I've got the Germany 1990 jersey up there, the tournament, the 1988, I think I bought it in 88, they wore it at Euro 88, that jersey, when they lost to the Dutch in the semi-final, the last time Germany hosted the Euros. If you think that's bad, imagine the only tattoo you had in your body was the crest of the Deutscher Fußballbund. That's how much I admire the Germans for the way they decided anytime they were bad at football, right, let's just root and branch. Let's sort this out, because we need to sort it out, because it means so much to our country. It means so much to the general population. The cheer, the singing after that goal last night, when we got the goal through the Germans, it went beyond just. It wasn't tokenism. It was, that'll do. That'll do us. We've scored the goal. Way. You're not singing anymore. We're being sarcastic because you're beating us 4-1, and you end up getting the team you deserve. You end up getting the national team you deserve. It's not the national team I deserve. I put so much fucking money into Scottish football. Through watching it television, I've got was it Premier Sport? It's back to being Premier Sport, I think. Sky, even Amazon. I've got that, but for other reasons. But there's football on that. TNT, obviously, for the European stuff. And I've got my season ticket for Ibrox. I've got all the money. I spent. That's all going to part of that's going to the SFA and what have you. I say I go to at least 2 Scotland games, probably 3 or 4. I've been averaging over the last few years. I go to most Scotland games at Hampden, and I pay my membership, my Tartan Army or Scotland Travel Club, whatever it is. It's basic membership so to ensure you get priority for tickets for games at Hampden in case we get a big game. I don't want to be missing out, as I have done in the past. See previous pods on this pod, on this YouTube channel of mine. Go below for Rangers v Scotland and Rangers v England. Check out those pods if you want to get an idea of what I've put into watching Scotland. My general idea about the Scotland national team. I don't like. Since I was an adult, since the moment I couldn't get in to see as I went to the Euro 2000 qualifying campaign. I went to every home game, and then a lot of them, the last one, we had to beat Lithuania at Hampden to get into the playoff. It was a Saturday afternoon. There was 24,000 there or something of the crowd. Hampden was basically half empty. I was there, I was at that one. Then we drew England in the playoffs, and all the tickets were gone within 10 seconds, and I didn't get a ticket. That's when I decided, A, that I was going to pay the membership, the £50 a year, to make sure I get priority for tickets for Scotland games at Hampden. And it's also when I was done with the whole "we hate England" thing. Like, oh, look at us hating England. What about loving yourself as opposed to this abusive, self-harming relationship we've got to have with football here? We need to do something more positive than that. And of course, you get to that. I went down to Euro 96 as well. I'm in the crowd for the England-Germany semi-final, still very much of the kind of Jockey Wilson as God, Eric Bristow as evil kind of mindset that you were as a young Scotsman in those days. And you're meeting lots of English folk who don't give a shit that you're Scottish. They're just glad you're not German. But they're just, all right, blah, 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 chatting away and all that. And maybe that's because we didn't annoy the English enough on the football field. We've certainly changed that in recent years to our detriment. The English are quite happy to go, we can't beat the Germans. The Scots seem to want a real rivalry with us. They're booing our national anthem and what have you. Okay, that's fine. We'll turn to you. That's got a lot of nasty recently because it's a lot more winnable as a derby for the English. But I was quite happy to watch hoping England do well in major tournaments as an adult. Lots of English people, lots of English pals and what have you, and I've got much more in common with so many people in England than I do have with so many people in Scotland. I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about social stuff and that. But yeah, I never had a problem. But last night, the horrible thing, it's like one of those things, you shouldn't, the reason you don't wear football colours in a bar, the reason you shouldn't talk about religion, maybe in mixed company, you shouldn't have to watch a Scotland game with an English commentator, because it's going to get misinterpreted, even by guys like me, who are very friendly towards England. They don't have a lot of time for all that anti-English stuff. Sam Matterface was horrific. He was absolutely horrendous last night, and he was clearly starting to enjoy himself. And I think he hates the Scotland fans. It's okay for me to hate the Scotland fans, because I'm one of them. But him, that was out of order. I think the last goal and the fifth goal, let's shut up the Scotland fans. I'm sitting there going, that's an embarrassment that the Scotland fans are singing when we're 4-1 down. Sam Matterface saying it, that's a different matter face. I'm like, no, that's totally out of order. What is STV these days? Is it just, I don't, because I'm watching so much football on satellite channels or whatever you want to call them these days, the terrestrial channels, I kind of miss them out a lot of the time. I had no idea STV is just... What's the point of the S in STV? Is it Scottish at all? Is it the 6 o'clock news or Scotland Today, whatever it's called? Is that it? Is that all they've got in terms of Scottish content? It used to be a whole lot of cheap series from South Africa and New Zealand and stuff like that, dramas, and we couldn't even get... I know it's Super Ali's doing the co-commentating, and that was a bit embarrassing at times with the old, oh, Ali, I don't want to have to tell you that, Thomas Muller scored twice against you here and twice against you at Hampden. That was it in that game. It's just really enjoying it. And I think it's when you get that old feeling that you used to get back in the day when you're like, London, EB, English Broadcasting Company bias. When you know that if England are getting beat, something like Sam Matterface is going to be mournful. It's going to be grave. It's going to be, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in football. You're not allowed to laugh about that then. And I think this kind of, you support a national team. What's that all about? Attitude towards other nations is just fucking racism. But anyway, he's a pig ignorant that we get, and he shouldn't be allowed to commentate in any football. I think the English fans pretty much hate Sam Matterface as much as I do now. But that was just horrible. It was just part of the general horribleness of it last night. And then Steve Clarke has his post-match presser, which was a shambles. It was terrible. I like the idea that Scotland manager's been a prick to the media. I'm okay with that. Walter could do it. Gordon Strachan did. That's what made me believe he was going to do well. Gordon Strachan, he nearly did. He took Scotland to a good level, Gordon Strachan, because he's a wee bampoint. He knows how to handle the media. You've got to have that kind of thick skin. Alec Ferguson, bullying journalists and what have you. I think it's sometimes required at that kind of level. But Steve Clarke, it was a bit plasticky. Now, I'm not one of these Rangers fans that got a problem with Steve Clarke. The only problem I've got with him is his face sockets. My mum knows Steve Clarke's mum, that kind of. His face sockets, I'm from Ardrossan, and that's a rivalry that we just don't want to get into. That's the most toxic rivalry in world football. The Rovers against the Vics, but and a lot of Rangers fans, Steve Clarke did that whole thing where it was bye-bye Rangers after they beat us in the last game of the 2017-18 season. I think that's the least the guy was allowed after we had, the Union Bears calling him a Fenian bastard at the top of their voice. I know Steve Clarke milked that afterwards, but he's entitled to. The guy's Catholic and it's absolutely horrific. He used to distract from us beating Kilmarnock 5-0. And I like that bit of cynicism. I like that in a manager, that they're able to do that, they're able to work stuff and create a kind of, maybe a siege mentality amongst the players and deflect from a bad result. But it seemed last night what Steve Clarke was doing in the presser was almost staged. He was is it Lewis Irons, the guy who's been doing so much of the presentation on BBC Scotland recently. He was, I think, the first one up to ask him a question, and he was almost shaking. You could hear the nervousness in the boy's voice. Do you think that was, how are the players feeling? And how do you think they're feeling? And it didn't even sound, it didn't suit Steve Clarke to try and be aggressive. How do you think they're feeling? And there's a thing that the press officer was obviously allowing only one question per journalist, and Steve Clarke was giving them like a 2-word answer to every one of them. And there was this, by the end of it, he said, right, another one, come on then, or something. I saw a bit of it. I saw a truncated version of that press conference on ITV. And then I heard all of it on Radio Scotland podcast. That's how desperate I was to find out more about this morning. I listened to Radio Scotland coverage from last night. And by the end of it, he actually saying to John, right, come on in, you want to know? Come on in. It was like he'd decided, I'm going to be in here and be confrontational. And the journalists couldn't really have been any nicer, any more meek, actually, in the questions they were putting to him, considering it's one of the most humiliating defeats in their bloody history. I felt as if it was a strange situation. If it is a case of Steve Clarke is properly raging and that is transmitted to all the players, then great. Yeah, that's fine. Use it. Get through this tournament. The only way they can make up for last night is by becoming the first Scotland team ever to get into a second round of a tournament. And they still have the opportunity to do that. What worries me though is you can't turn it on and off, you can't choose when you're going to perform. And then a lot of the chat before this tournament, coming from Andy Robertson as well, coming from, I think, Lyndon Dykes talking about it in a kind of an interview in the street, because he's gone over to Germany to support the team despite the fact he's injured. Well played to him. You just need 3 points. You can do it with 3 points, or 4 points will do. And then Steve Clarke went straight into last night, well, we didn't think this was going to be the game where we take any points against the Germans. And the performance itself, we looked like a team who had decided they were losing this game. I know, that's what I say, that's why I was quite enjoying the Kieran, or taking some sort of solace in the Kieran Tierney reaction to that very early winning of a bye kick, because it showed that somebody was pumped up. There was a bit of, kind of motivation going on there, but a lot of it just seemed to be, we're getting beat here. And a lot of the reaction has been, well, we weren't expecting to win this game. The Germans are absolutely great. The game got away from us. Blah blah blah. You need to put absolutely everything into every game. You need to have gone into that game last night trying to win the thing, thinking you're going to do as well as possible. You're maybe going to pick the Germans off, sitting in deep, but working within that depth to try and stop them. It didn't bother the Germans at all, the way we set up last night. And I feel as if Scotland go in there and they just think they could write that game off, you'll then find over the next couple of days, instead of, I'm devastated because I put so much into that game, but the amount you put into it then powers you on. It comes back into your legs, it comes back into your mindset, your instincts when you take the pitch in Cologne against Switzerland on Wednesday. You're going to just have a terrible feeling that the Scotland players are going to wake up on Monday or Tuesday and give it, we didn't really try the other night, we didn't really get into that game the other night, so I've got nothing in the legs. I'm not into this tournament. I haven't got my game face on, I haven't got my game head on. As Brian Clough said, you can't turn it on and off. You can't choose to switch it on and off like a tap. You need to be going for it, full tilt, all the time. Especially when it's Scotland. It's only the only second tournament we've qualified for. It is only the second tournament we've qualified for since France '98. But Chris McLaughlin, BBC Scotland, just kept repeating this thing about it's the only time we've been at a tournament in 26 years. At first I thought he just meant it's the first time we've opened a tournament. In France '98 we played Brazil, when we only lost 2-1. And everybody thought, yeah, we only lost 2-1, but Brazil was so much better. This is the problem with that kind of attitude last night. We get pumped 5-1. Germany are so much better. They're proving it. it trickles down through the years. But Chris McLaughlin just seemed to keep talking. I don't want to have a go because he's got a problem with Rangers, or there was a bit of a fallout with the BBC around a Chris McLaughlin report. It just he just kept talking about this 26 years, and nobody was correcting him. He did it in two separate reports. It's 26 years in Scotland have played at a major tournament. He didn't qualify by saying the first time we've been abroad. No, obviously the last Euros we played two of the games at Hampden, one at Wembley, or it's the last time we've opened it, the first time we've opened a tournament in 26 years. It just, as far as he was concerned, the last Euros didn't count. Only 3 years since the last Euros because of COVID. Only 18 months since the last World Cup because of FIFA's disgusting allocation of it to a country so hot and so barbaric towards its citizens that had to be played in the winter. And last night just made you think that the next World Cup is going to have 104 games. It's going to have 40 more games than the last World Cup. It's going to be played at 16 different venues. And the first World Cup, I remember, had 16 teams in it. There's too much international football. Too much football in general. The Champions League's expanding. It's getting completely out of hand. And last night did nothing to make international football any more palatable to myself, a proud supporter of the second oldest international football team in the world, who just need to get their act together, grassroots level, upwards. There was a bit in Sky Sports this morning, or Sky Sports News, showed Musiala, because obviously Musiala could have played for England. He played for England's youth levels. Showing him, was it when he was 11 years old, playing a kids game at Wembley with Wimbledon's kids side, and they win it, and he's running about there at 11 years old, and you're thinking, he's obviously got the talent. Then I don't know how you get it into. It's not my job to know how you get it into kids, how you make kids that talented. But we've got to start doing it in this country, or else we should just give up. Because this whole thing of just 200,000 people turning up in a city because we've got a fixture there, with no real hope of winning it, celebrating the fact that we've pulled one back with 10 men at 4-0 down. I'm done with that shit. I'm done with that shit. So Scotland have started really terribly in this Euros, but they really have to take the chance to do something considerable in terms of Scottish football history to make up for that over the next couple of games. I'm away to watch Spain against Croatia.